Friends, this video is really heartbreaking for me that I'm going to react to. There's a video that I saw, that an interview from a YouTube channel here on YouTube, that I want to react to, do some teaching around. As I work in the Christian community, as I work in the Adventist community, I see so much of this, and I'm going to use it as a teaching moment. No child should experience this level of harm. No child should do it. And I was in last weekend, I was in Sweden, and somebody asked the question about parenting and about discipline and children. And my response was that, God used love. That's what we believe. God used love to expel sin from the world. Therefore, we as parents cannot use harshness and harm to try to get our children to do something. And one gentleman said, well, what about the rod? The Bible says that we should not spare the rod and spoil the child. And I said, well, what is the rod? What is the rod? In Psalms 23, the rod and the staff comfort. It didn't harm, it comforted. And so I'm hoping that this is a massive teaching moment for parents, Adventist parents. I hope that this is a massive teaching moment for you. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk through this video clip and I'm going to share the link for the extended podcast below this video. I'm hoping it's a teaching moment for us. I've been talking about similar things like this for a while. And when I talk on spiritual abuse, I say this to parents, to Adventist parents. I hope that we take heed. If you are new to this channel, my name is Joanna Daniel. I'm a trauma-informed counselor and a founder of Wounds to Scars. We work with adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. We provide structured support for survivors of trauma to find healing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to talk through different aspects of this video, different parts of this video that is very distressing. And I'm not going to show all of it. As I said, I'm going to share the link for you to go and watch the video for yourself. But, based on the things that I teach, we have a community for parents who are healing from trauma, people who are parenting after trauma. The things that we experience impact the way we love and live. And as Christians, we have a responsibility to heal so that we're not harming our children. The Word of God says, if we harm them, it's better if a milestone was hung around our neck. God loves children. He loves all of us, but children are close to his heart. And this parents adopt this young woman when she was a baby and went on to create more trauma in her life. Because she was adopted, that means there must have been trauma before, or whatever it is that happened to her birth parents or family members. She was adopted, and they added more trauma to this young woman's life. And I know that God is going to hold them responsible for the harm that they have done to her. Now, I also want to say that this happened not because they were Christians or Adventists, but because they were harmful people already. And, I don't know the adoption process. I just know that when you have experienced pain and you've not dealt with that pain, it expresses itself somehow. And unfortunately, sometimes it expresses itself through harming other people, and our children are in the direct path. As I said, when I travel a lot and speak, and some of the people I can't unsee is the children. The way our pain impacts our children, it is important for us as adults to take responsibility for our pain and do our own work of healing. So I'm going to share my screen, and I just want to let you know that some of this content might be distressing. So I just want you to know that. So here in this clip, they're going to be talking about food and the way food was used as a means of control and harm.
Takes to be vegan. Raw vegan is next level. Raw really intense. Is like a whole other stratosphere. Yeah. And not to say that for some people it works. I think it could. For a lot of people it doesn't, though, because it takes a lot to get enough of the nutrients that you need. It's possible, but you have to be really diligent. So did you feel like you were getting enough nutrition?
I did not. A lot of people even express that. So teachers growing up would make remarks to them or to me. Classmates would say something to me for being too small. at the end of the day, that was my former mother's doing, and that is what she wanted. She wanted to hear those comments of me being small. She wanted me to be like deathly thin.
Why do you think that is?
More control.
So she was just a sadistic person in that way?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of your earliest
So I want to talk about the I want to talk about the raw vegan. And we raise our children and we want them to be healthy, and I don't think the vegan lifestyle is harmful. It isn't a harmful lifestyle. I am fully plant-based. My children were, from the womb were, because I was. Now, but there's something about making sure that our children are taken care of and looked after, making sure that they're getting the right nutrients. When I had my youngest, and he had a vitamin D deficiency, we found out because he was ill. I had to satisfy the hospital and the dietitians that I was combining nutrients in a way that would ensure that he was going to get all the nutrition he needed. And so I dive deep into nutrition and understanding nutrition so that I could know which foods I needed to combine with which foods, so that nutrient he could get enough nutrition, the whole family, so that we would not be deficient in anything. It's important for us to do that. And I remember when I take my children home, one of my sisters look at them and says, Joe, they're fully plant-based. And I said, yes. And she said, we're Jamaican. She said, but them fat though. So if we love our children and we are going to look after our children, we're going to ensure that we're not harming them and using food as a means to harm. Now, as I said, I'm fully plant-based. I am mostly raw, but that's a very difficult lifestyle. That's a really difficult lifestyle, fully raw. You have to make sure you eat enough. You have to make sure you eat enough of the right things. You have to make sure you're combining nutrition right, to make sure that you are getting enough of the vital nutrition that your body needs. I have to make sure all of those things. I never force my children to be raw vegan. And my children are at a certain age and they're making decisions for themselves around their diet. This is not supposed to be punishment. It's not supposed to be punishment. And so forcing children to be raw vegan, but ensuring, now this is where the mother's trauma was playing out. She wanted the child to be slim, to be skinny. That is her trauma that she has used to traumatize her child. A child should be nourished, well nurtured, well looked after, and so she used her trauma to traumatize this young woman, this child that they had promised to look after and to care for and to love. And so, I know that in the Adventist community as well, there, 2 meals are better than 3. People believe in that. But for children, if you look at your children, especially boys, when they get to a certain age, they are exercising, they are playing football, they're doing all sorts of things that is using up nutrition a lot. You have to make sure that they are getting what they need and that they are not going to be hurt. They're not going to be harmed. If you're struggling with how to do it, go to your GP, talk to a dietitian, research about food combinations and children at a certain age and what do they need nutritionally at crucial developmental stages in their lives to ensure that they're not harmed. Unfortunately, she is not the first person to have come out and to share her story. I have spoken to and worked with young people who were brought up in similar type of families like this and the similar types of results. And it is abuse. That's what it is. There's no other word for it. It is neglect. It is neglect and it is abuse. And you are traumatizing the children. And we have to talk about it. And we have to educate our community on, not to go to extremes, in the things that we're doing and become, religious, and I'm going to say the word fanatics and harm people. We have to make sure of that. So if you are here and you're listening to this and you're a parent and you're experimenting with diet and you want to follow health reform, ensure that you're not doing it in a way that is harming the children. You're not doing it in a way that is harming yourself. You're not doing it in a way that is harmful. And you're not doing it because you don't want your children to come and do YouTube videos later on. You're not doing it because you are going to be loving and caring and taking care of those children that God had lent to you as a gift. Children are a heritage, they are a gift. They're to be loved and looked after. If you know that you've experienced trauma, and you know that you're struggling in this era of parenting, you're struggling to love, you're struggling to connect, you're struggling to provide the warmth and emotional safety that your children needs, I'm putting my link for our WhatsApp group below this video. Join our community and start to get educated. Educate yourself in how can I connect? How can I build secure attachment with my children? How can I not harm my children? This is it's really important for us as a community to know. It's important for us as a community, people who teach health reform, it's really important for them to know this, because I think some do it in a very not balanced way. And because they do it in such a way that is not balanced, people who listen to them go out and practice something that is very harmful to their children and often to other people. So it's important. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue this video because there are other parts of it that is very distressing, as I said. But we want to, as a community, something for us to know. We need to learn that it's an opportunity for us to teach and to learn and grow. So I'm looking down on my notes as I talk, because I had to, when I was watching it, I had to make notes, because I thought, let me use this as a teaching moment for not just Adventist community, but Christian communities who are going to extreme and you're harming children. It's not okay. So do not use food as a means of control. Don't use food as a means of controlling your children. Don't use foods as a means of punishment, and when I say that, I mean, like, don't let children miss a meal because you're punishing them. Don't make children go to bed hungry because you're punishing them. Don't limit how much they eat because you're punishing them. Make foods available. Don't let the fridge be out of not accessible because of you're punishing them, or you're in a home where we know that we are teaching our children to not eat between meals. But let the children know if they're hungry, they can get something to eat. Because when you open the fridge, when you open the cupboards, when it's available to them, they will not take it when they don't need it. Make it available. Let the children eat when they need it, because after a while they won't. They'll eat at meal times. They won't. We might feel like if we say you're not allowed to go into the fridge without permission, or you're not allowed to go into the cupboards without permission, we say those kinds of things. If parents say those kinds of things, and the children are hungry, as I said, boys, when they get to a certain age, they're playing. Girls too. Children, they're in certain developmental stages of their lives, and they're playing and they're using up energy, and they need to restore that. Let them be able to go grab something and eat if they need it. What you'll find is when they have that freedom, they won't misuse it. They will not misuse the freedom. But let them be able to relax around food. Help them to not develop insecure attachment with food. Because when they develop insecure attachment with food, they're going to spend the rest of their life trying to heal from that. So that's really important. I'm going to continue with this video for us to talk about some more of the things that came up that was very distressing, to hear. Really upsetting to hear that people would adopt children and they would do this to them. It's just not okay, and I know God is not pleased either.
Memories being brought into this family, did you feel an overall sense of love and happiness, like they truly wanted you there, or feel any sort of love growing up initially?
It's weird because it depends on what your definition of love is. I think as a child it looked like love to me, when now with an outside lens it was anything but love.
Yeah, well, if that's all you ever knew, you don't really have anything to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, children need connection to thrive and to survive, basically. So I think it's true that a lot of kids who are in abusive situations try to make anything feel like acceptance and love just for that survival sense.
Yes, that is
She is right. Children need love and connection to survive. Home should be a secure place, a secure base. We teach a lot about secure attachment and how to move from insecure to secure attachment. I counsel a lot of, parents with older children. Apologize to your children. Start to do the work now. Children need a secure base from which to explore the world. Home should be a secure place. Youth is sowing time. We should sow love and care and affection and warmth in our children. As I said, this was an adopted child. It was already going to be challenging. They needed to bring her into a home where there was love and care and kindness and compassion and empathy and warmth and all of that for her to thrive. That's the best environment for her to thrive in. But instead, what she said is, when you're a child, you interpret certain things as love, but you don't know until you're older, looking back, that actually, hang on, that was not love. And I saw this quote years ago, and I don't remember the author of the quote, that says, when a child's parents don't love them or harm them, the child don't stop loving the parent, they stop loving themselves. So the work that this young woman will have to do is about learning to love herself when she stopped loving herself in an environment that was harmful and abusive. So, oftentimes we can't give what we don't have. If you're a parent and you know that you grew up in an abusive home and you did not experience love, it really is our responsibility to go learn what it looks like. If we're Christians, we talk about the love of God all the time, and as we talk about the love of God, maybe that's not themes that we can internalize in our own lives. Then and as I was saying that, I'm thinking there's going to be somebody who says, well, how do we know that this is true? How do we know that this story is true? How do we know if she's telling the truth or not? And I have worked with and encountered and spoken to enough young people to know that this story could be true. I know enough young people that are suffering from similar type things, and that's why I decided to react to it. That's why I decided to teach around it, because I've worked with enough, I've seen and spoken to enough young people from conservative Adventist homes like this who are hurt, who have been hurt, who are continually hurt, who our message around dress reform and health reform and extremes in doctrine, that extreme places, or people use these things that are not bad, take them to extreme places and use them to harm their children. And maybe when you're in the middle of it, you don't know that you're harming your children. Maybe you think that, well, I don't know how they could not know that they're harming their children when they're doing this. So maybe some of it in this case, they may have well know that they were doing it out of their own evil heart, but maybe you're listening and you think you're doing the best and you're listening to this now. If you're listening to this and your first response is defense, something is wrong. If your first response is defend Adventism, defend the faith, defend the parents, defend what you're doing, that something is wrong there. If your first response is defense, if your first response is not empathy, if your first response is not self-reflection, if your first response is not I wonder if I'm doing this in any way around the food part, around extremes in doctrine, around not being able to love your children, around feeling like some of the things that we're doing is control, it's not love. Sometimes they're parents who use the Bible to harm their children, use the Bible to manipulate and control. Well, the Bible says this, and some of them says Ellen White says this. They use the Bible and Ellen White as a means of controlling their children. And I've spoken about this several times, and sometimes I get pushback from people who are saying, well, that's not me. And it may not be you. And if it's not you, that's great. But if your first response is defense, then something is wrong. If your first response is not empathy and care and distress and wonder, how could this happen? Make sure it doesn't happen on your watch. The way I make sure of that is by teaching. I teach parents. I provide spaces for people to heal so that we can understand and have a balanced view of this wonderful message that we have, so it's not used to hurt other people. So it's not used to hurt children. So we're going to hear a little bit more from this clip, and then you will see some of what I'm talking about. Like, these parents were really harmful people, very, very harmful people, and have done a lot to traumatize this young
Correct.
woman.
So, what are some of your earliest memories growing up in that home?
It's interesting with trauma is like your brain almost turns into Swiss cheese with the little holes through it. So it's like there's always a lot of like blanks. But then it's interesting that as I'm getting older and the more experiences that I have now, or if something even like reminds me of something, a memory or one of those Swiss cheese holes get filled.
Which can be a lot too, to uncover and to remember and to be put back in those situations, especially when you're not expecting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Earliest memories that I remember, it especially with like childhood sexual abuse, like it started very young, I would say, around like 7, 8. It started very slow, so it started a lot with like touching, hands being grabbed very tightly. So that's kind of like how it had started for me.
And did you want to say which family member this was?
Yeah, my former father was the one who.
So that's distressing. As you can hear, I did say it got worse, and she went on to explain. She went on to explain what happened and more of what happened, by her father and by her mother watching. Now, this tells me about a family that was deeply harmful already, and I wonder about the other children in that home. What are their stories? The other children in that home, their stories must be similar to hers. Similar stories of harm, maybe similar stories of lack of care and protection from people who should not have had children. And but I'm not God, so I don't get to determine who have and who doesn't have. I just know that when you have experienced trauma, you need to heal. If you're a parent and you've experienced SA, you need to heal. If you are a woman and your husband is harming your children, run the risk of being an unsubmissive wife, run the risk of being a woman who takes over the leadership of her home, run the risk of doing that, but do not stand by and watch your husband harm your children. It's so angering that they would adopt this baby, uh, bring her into their home and harm her to that extent. But I know that there are families right now where it's their birth children that they're harming in similar ways. If you have experienced harm, get help. It's not okay. Later on in the video, she talks about disclosing to a pastor at her church. She disclosed, but nothing happened. And I know they're framing this in Adventism being a cult, and I'm not going to go into that theological debate at this time on this channel. That's not what we do. When you're an Adventist, you know who you are. But if you're a harmful one, it needs to be called out. And that's why at Winston Scars we do training for pastors and leaders around SA, around recognizing the sign of SA, around recognizing the signs of grooming, so that when somebody this close to us, we know what to do. No child should disclose to a leader, to a member, that their parent are harming them, and you get to send that child home back with their parents. Step in and do something. We cannot be so protective of ourselves and of our church. We do not need to protect the church. God will do that. God is fully capable and better at it than we will ever be. Our responsibility is to live a life that is going to be representative and reflective of him and his character. This is not what it looks like. So as members, we want to keep our eyes open for families where harm is happening. When a child is close to us, we want to run the risk of offending people by talking out, by standing in between a child and an abusive parent. We want to do that, but sometimes our view around what the rod is, as I said, that question I was asked last weekend when I was presenting, what the rod, we mustn't spare the rod and spoil the child. We're so confused about what the rod is. We're so confused about the character of Christ that we can think, we can believe that we can harm children through our doctrines, we can physically abuse them, we can abuse them through essay, and that we will be using the rod to discipline. We are so, I don't understand the God that we know. I don't believe in the same God that we can believe that he would be okay with us hurting our children, and that we would be raising them for heaven. We would be raising them for him. We are not. We're harming him. We're harming God when we harm his children that he loves. So, as I said, as I'm winding down, if you're listening to this video, if you're going ahead and watching that podcast on that YouTube channel, and your first response is defensiveness, you've missed the whole point of the story, of why this young woman is telling her story. If you can't take away learning, if you can't self-reflect and go, I wonder where I might be doing things that might be harmful to my children, and if you can't do that and step that back, if you can't feel empathy for a child that was hurt, she's going to spend the rest of her life healing from what they did to her. That is not okay. It's not okay. Once again, if you're a parent and you've experienced trauma, find a safe place to heal. Find yourself a good therapist and do the work. Do not use the word of God and the writings of Ellen White to manipulate, control, and harm your children. Be balanced in your approach to doctrines that we believe. Do not use them. Don't go to extremes. Ask your children, listen to them, hear their complaints, watch them, study them, and look for ways to love them and to care for them. If you do not know how to love, we can learn how to love. It's not an innate thing that we were born with. Some of us had to go cultivate it. Learn how to cultivate love in the soil of your heart, so that what flows out of it is care and not harm. Thank you for watching this video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and share this video with a family that you know need to have a more balanced approach to how they're applying doctrines and these messages.